Hello, everybody, and welcome to Zanata Consulting's monthly webinar series. This one is on Zoho Connect overview and best practices. A little bit of housekeeping for those of you that are here. If you have a question, we're going to try to answer them during the show, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So you can just hit the little Q&A box up in the top, and we'll get to those questions, like I said, either during or at the end of our presentation. Kind of avoid the chat if you can, because if we do the questions, it's a little better there. And other than that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is Brett Martin. I'm here with Tyler Colt, and we're going to take you through Zoho Connect. Zoho Connect is a little bit of an interesting product in that a lot of people don't know what it is or what it does. So we're going to kind of talk about what Zoho Connect is. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Zoho Connect and all the things it does. And then we're going to run through a whole bunch of basic setups here. So settings and groups and tasks and how to get everything set up. And then when we're all done, we'll have a nice little Q&A and we can kind of talk about how maybe Connect can fit into your organization and how you can use it. So what is Zoho Connect? Essentially, it is an intranet and an extranet. So if you're not familiar with that, Wikipedia basically defines it as a form of internal communication and collaboration. So really, it's a single platform that allows you to communicate internally with everybody in your company. And we'll talk about kind of all the features and what that really looks like. Also, Zoho Connect can be set up as an extranet. So you can set it up to communicate with people in the outside world. And everything you see that we're going to configure here for kind of internal communication, you can set up for external communication. And in many cases, that may be how you want to go ahead and set it up, because oftentimes a lot of the tools that are in Zoho Connect are available to you in others' tools. So if you've got Zoho One, you might have a lot of these things you're already using. You might find you really don't need Connect, but for an extranet, it can have a lot of value that way as well. So I'll give you a quick overview of Connect, and there is a lot to cover here. So I think Zoho Connect, of all of the applications, has more buttons that run down the sides and across the top and across the bottom. There's just a whole lot going on. So when you first go to Connect, this is kind of your company wall, and this is the feed, and we'll kind of talk about how this can change over time. So this is generally where all of the various conversations are, and this is where people can interact with each other, share thoughts, share documents, do those kind of things as well. And then if we kind of run down the side here, you've got groups, and we're actually going to talk about groups in detail. There are certain things that are kind of fundamental to Connect. Groups is one of them, so we'll talk about how to do the most out of groups. The next one is tasks. Potentially one of the most powerful uses inside of Zoho Connect. It's interesting in that it actually can be used as kind of a central task management, especially with boards, but you'll kind of see that it brings in not only Zoho Connect, but Zoho CRM and Zoho Projects. So there's a lot you can do with Zoho Tasks, and we're going to kind of cover that in detail as well. The manuals section, this is, company manuals, employee handbooks, all of those kind of things. You can really just go ahead and add those. So, or if this is an extranet, maybe things you want to have externally facing to your clients. It's an area to store those and share those with employees. And then files. This is interesting. You can kind of have a whole separate file library here. So now, of course, you also have WorkDrive and all of the other tools that are out there. But, with Zoho, oftentimes what you get is there are people that maybe just want to use this product. So you really have all of these things that need to be included in this application because maybe they don't have any other applications. So you actually do have file storage that sits in here as well. Town Hall is probably one of the more unique features inside of Connect, and that this is a kind of a ask me anything. It's an AMA type of thing. So really, you set up a town hall, and people can ask you questions. They can submit them ahead of time. People can upvote them, and then you can go ahead and answer all those questions in real time. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about that today and how it works. Events calendar, we'll talk about it as well. This is central events. You can centralize calendars for various departments and groups. Channels is a little unique. This kind of ties in mostly with Click, but it can create channels not only in here that you can use, but if you are using Zoho Click, it'll actually go to Zoho Click, and it'll even go to Zoho Mail. So you can kind of have these channels across various applications in the Zoho ecosystem. Custom apps, we're not going to cover those today. This is really using Zoho Creator. This hasn't been updated in a little while, and so it's kind of something that probably you want to stay away from right now, but you do have the ability to build some custom apps. You can also embed surveys, so if you want to poll your customers, and then you can also have forums where you can get entire discussion boards going around around whatever topic you may want. As you move all the way down the line, you can just reorder the apps, and you actually can add web tabs. So if you have certain things you want people to link out to, you can go ahead and easily do that. Kind of continuing the tour here of Connect, going to the other side now. Up here is where you'll find your settings, and we'll cover those in detail, kind of how to get things set up in here as well. And then kind of moving down here, this is where you've got the people tab, and you can go ahead and add all of your people. You can add them by department. You can add them individually, whoever you want to have access to various things. And when you set up your groups, you can kind of restrict access based around various departments and how things are set up. And then we've got our integrations. We're actually going to talk about this. There are a lot of integrations that can work with Zoho Connect, and we'll kind of talk in detail about how those go and what you can do with them. And then you've got moderation. So maybe you've set up a chat or a forum or a group and people are talking, but you want things to be moderated in there. You can set the moderators and they can approve comments and go through there as well. So this will be flagged whenever there's a comment that needs to be reviewed. You also can do video conferencing. So you can set up a variety of them. You can do it using basically Click. It's going to just instantly launch a video conference, or you can use it doing Showtime. So you basically put in your conference title, invite people, and start the conference. So if you want to have a really quick video conference, that's kind of the way to do it. And then you also have Showtime directly built in. So if you want to launch, for those of you that aren't familiar, this is an application that allows you to do online trainings, presentation. It's kind of like a webinar application, but it's got some different features, very unique. And if you haven't looked at it, you should take a look, but you can launch Showtime directly from Connect. All right. And then you kind of move it. So that's if you click on Showtime, it's going to tell you, you want to do it now? Is it going to be remote? Is it going to be face-to-face? And you're basically just instantly either starting or scheduling a Showtime session. We'll go across the top now. If you click on the silhouette of your head in the upper right-hand corner, this is where you can see things like your profile, networks, your accounts, all the basic information. Go ahead and down the mobile apps for this. And then quick link to start a conversation, ask a question, make an announcement. You can just click that plus button. And most of the things that we kind of went around the menu, a lot of those are directly there just from hitting that plus button up at the top. And then kind of running down the bottom here, you also have full access to Zoho Notebook when you're in Connect. Again, Connect is that central hub connecting everything together. So if you use Zoho Notebook, you can pull up your notes and you can look at those. You can quickly go ahead and get help, go into the help center, start a quick tour, submit an email for feedback, start a chat. And then we also have night mode. So instantly, if you're a fan of night mode, you can set your night mode settings right there as well. And then you can also hide your widgets, and then you can manage your widgets. And we'll not really cover widgets, but the widgets are the things that you see up here on the screen. So where it says invite people and trending tags, you can have a whole variety of widgets that will appear on the screen. So when people log in, you're basically giving them information that they want to see. And they're very, very simple and kind of worth taking a look at. So there are birthday announcements, town hall. You've got a whole bunch of widgets that you can actually put on the screen, and people will have quick access to those things. All right, and with that, we're going to talk about settings. I'm going to turn it over to Tyler to go through the settings menu here.
Sweet, yeah, so we'll kind of move through this relatively quickly here. So up in the top right of the screen, again, you have your settings bar. So first we're going to jump in and just look at the settings themselves and do a quick little overview. So they organize them into 6 different categories or types of settings. First, you're looking at your network settings. So it's kind of where you can set up some general permissions. You can run in and actually associate some of those connected applications. You're able to white label the Connect application. So for example, we have our Connect set to the domain connect.zenata.com. Just able to map over just a little custom domain to customize this and set that up. Especially nice if you are going to have external users, using this, that rather than accessing a Zoho domain, they're actually going to be accessing your company's domain, similar to what you would do for like a knowledge base in your support system. Kind of moving along, you can set up some pieces of customization. So, you can set up a logo or favicon, which is the little icon that will show up in the tab of the browser. You can layer on some custom CSS to change some of the core functionality and look and feel. And then, of course, you can customize your email template that would go out when you invite a guest to join your instance of Connect. You can also customize a lot of preferences about the different users. So in here, you can set up different notification settings. For example, maybe someone wants to be notified every week of all open tasks that are currently sitting in Connect. And you can kind of dial all those in here, as well as setting up some display preferences and permissions. Moving along there into analytics, you can kind of track some overall health of the ecosystem, right? So kind of who's engaging with what tabs are not getting enough love, which ones are, the places where people are really focused. And then of course, last but not least, we have some of our data mobility settings, right? So if you wanted to export your data out of Connect, or if you wanted to import data into Connect, you're able to do that here. You'll notice that they have a couple direct imports that they can pull from Yammer or Workplace by Facebook, which are kind of similar applications from other companies that can handle your intranet needs. And moving down the list here, you can go ahead and invite users from this page. If you are a Zoho One user, that's going to route you to the Zoho One interface to invite users. Otherwise, it'll just have you invite them directly via Connect. And lastly, we can check out our usage details, which kind of just gives you a bird's eye view of what everyone is doing in the system. So if we take a look in there, we'll see, kind of a roll up of, how many members do we have? How many different groups do we have? The boards, the storage. So if you are using this for file management, you can see, where you're at in terms of storage limits. And then if you have any custom apps, you can track kind of what's been used and what's going on there. If you're on a limited plan, for us, we'll see that a lot of these are unlimited members, unlimited groups, right? If you are on one of their, non-enterprise editions, you might have some limits here. This is where you can take a look and make sure that you're, using your resources how you'd like to.
All right, so now we're going to talk about setting up a group. So this is kind of fundamental to Connect. You basically will have separate groups. They'll be working with each other. So, an example of this is, let's say we want to have a Christmas party planning committee. And since we're in the age of COVID, let's get that virtual party planned. Basically, you can go ahead and create that group. You can then say, is it going to be a private group? Is it going to be a public group? If it's public, anybody who's a member of the Connect network can kind of come in. Or if it's private, you have to add the members specifically to that. And then down here, this is interesting. So if you create a channel for this group, it's going to basically create a channel over in Click and then create a channel in Connect. So kind of a whole separate area for people to have communication privately about the project or about the Christmas party in this case. And then you go ahead and click create, and then your group is created. So now under groups, you've got the Christmas party planning committee, and someone can do a post. We need to get this webinar set up in Zoho meetings so we can host our virtual Christmas party this year. And as you can see now, when you go to my feeds, if you're a member of this group and you're part of it, your feed will have more than just what was there before. You'll actually have the feed that you can look at around the Christmas party planning committee and the entire conversation that's going on there as well. And then if we go down to channels, you'll see that the Christmas party planning committee has been added into channels, and you actually can just have a whole separate little kind of more of a chat conversation here, not a general feed. You can talk in the channel there as well. And if I jump over to Click, you'll see that the exact same conversation now appears in Click. So it kind of gives people two ways to interact with the conversation. So that's groups, basically real simple. You set them up based around things that you want to cover. Maybe it's an engineering group or a sales group or a marketing group, and you just have those people so they can have their own conversations. Oftentimes we'll see them set up around specific customers. So you'll see where you want to set it up around all of your various customers that you're working with, so you can have direct conversations internally around those customers as well. And then that takes us to tasks, which we here at Sonata use extremely heavily inside of Connect. So Tyler, I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, I'll jump right in. So Yeah, the tasks inside of Zoho Connect function in a Kanban board format. If you've ever used an application like Trello, this is going to look pretty similar. They kind of go point for point and try to get a lot of that same functionality here. So first we'll start off with just the direct tasks inside of Connect. So the first thing you'd want to do is go ahead and create your board. So when you do that, right, you're able to give the board a specific name and associate it with a group. So we'll go ahead and fill in some of that information here. And so let's say we're making a board for our marketing action items. I can associate that with a group for the marketing department, because really we only need people that are in that specific group to be able to see these tasks and work on, this specific board. So it kind of gives you that ability to section things off and keep the system as clean as possible. And so inside of each board, you're going to have a myriad of sections. These sections become the columns of your Kanban board. And there's a couple different views that you can organize this into that we'll touch on. We'll start off with the boards kind of organized by section. So when you click new section, you're going to be able to add a title to this section. So I'll go ahead and create a couple of these here for a couple example sections of tasks that you might be working on for a marketing project. So, once we have our sections ironed out, we want to start adding some tasks. So under each section, you get a little plus button. And if you click that, it'll go ahead and pop open a little tab that you can just type directly into. So one of the things that we like about this app is that it has a lot of nice little UI functionality, right? So it's just one click, you start typing and you've created the name of the task and you're kind of ready to add some additional info. So once we open up that task, we'll see kind of starting off that it has its own status up there in the top left. And then kind of around the outside, it has some additional information that you'll want to fill in. So once we've kind of completed a task, it'll look more like this. So really every task should be assigned to a person. So here we've assigned this to Zen Ada. Every task should have a due date and a priority. So over on the right-hand side, we've set those up. And then one thing that we like about these tasks is that you're able to add checklist items underneath them. So if the overall task is to review some potential industries that you might want to target, the first thing we're going to do is run some type of report to group everyone up by industry. Then we're going to want to get a count of the leads in each industry. So you're able to kind of chart those out and make sure that, each action item that rolls up to this task is able to be, visible and completed by whoever is going to work on this. So, once we have our initial task in here, and you probably fill this up with a handful of tasks, up in the top right, we can choose how we want to view this. So I'll cover a couple of the ones that we use a lot internally here. First of all, currently we're in the section view. So this is just grouped based on, the category of task. You can view this in a list view if you're not as much a fan of the boards or the columns, right? So here we're going to see this grouped up kind of in a rows and columns format, grouped up again by those different sections. If we move down the list, we can also organize it based on the status of the task. So this is a really common format for these different boards where you're saying, hey, regardless of what type of task or which section this is in, I just want to see who's working on what and where we're at in the process of getting it completed. So it'll automatically just organize them based on their status. And as you move them from column to column, that status will update automatically. Last but not least, if you see kind of up in the top left under My Tasks, you can see a roll up of all the different tasks that you have in your various boards. And in each of those different task line items, you can see, which section it's in and which board it's in. So that in one view, you're able to see, I've got these set of tasks about kind of marketing action items, and maybe I have some for sales. So it gives you that roll up view sorted by the due date where you can kind of see everything across all the different boards all in one place.
All right, and before we get to manuals, I think I want to kind of talk a little bit more about tasks. It's interesting, Tyler. We get asked this question all the time, but the absolute best Kanban boards in all Zoho products actually exist inside tasks. So there's hope here that we've talked about this before, that maybe some of these Kanban boards will move over to CRM. We're actually seeing a lot of this appear in the new app Biggin, which has been released. But right now, you probably, even in taking about projects and sprints and everything else, if you want to kind of manage tasks in that Kanban type of view, I don't think there's a better place to do it than inside Connect right now.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you have a lot of this functionality in other places, but just in terms of the UI, the kind of intuitive nature of it, it just works super, super well for, managing that type of project. Now, of course, some of the things that if you had a huge project with, 100 kind of predefined tasks, then one of these boards might not be the place to do that. But if you have a rolling project with 5, 10, or even kind of 20 tasks assigned to various people, it's a really intuitive way to slice and dice those across some different views.
All right, so let's move on to manuals.
So manuals is kind of another tool in here that, similar to some of these, you could totally set up manuals over in something like WorkDrive or, Zoho Writer. But in the goal of keeping everything in one central hub, these manuals can be a pretty nice tool. So if we go ahead and first create our manual, we'll give it a name. And of course, common theme here, we'll set it to share to a specific group. So you can set certain contributors. So maybe only marketing can contribute to this. And then you can set up to say, should everyone be able to see this manual, or should a specific group be able to see this manual? So there's kind of two sets of permissions there again. One being who can contribute and make edits to it, and then who can see it and view this manual later. So we'll go ahead and set one up here for a marketing content guide. Kind of lists out the title across the top there, and then we can go ahead and create our first article. So doing that pulls up a view here that looks pretty similar to something like Zoho Notebook. Kind of across the top, you've got a whole bunch of different options for formatting your text, doing bullets, of course. You can embed images as well as videos directly into these. You can embed custom HTML and tables as well. So it's a very kind of open text editor format. We're able to include a lot of different types of content. For here, we're going to start with kind of a simple little manual, just talking about our content color guide. So maybe we had two different sets of colors that we wanted to use, one for things viewed digitally, one for things viewed physically. For those of you who might be in the graphic design space, don't judge me on my hex codes. I know that the black one is correct, but those other ones, I kind of just pulled up some numbers. So once you have this kind of charted out, you're able to save this article, and we now see it as part of our guide. But as you kind of grow and add more and more articles to this, you're going to find that you're going to need to organize them, right? So if I had 20 or 30 different articles just running in one big list, it's going to be really difficult to find what I need. So if we go into the settings up here in the top right, and then we pull those down, we can actually manage our chapters and articles, which helps us organize everything. So right now we just see kind of a standalone article for our content color guide. So we might want to create a chapter. So if I do that, and let's say I want to create just a theming guide, and maybe we'd have content color, we'd have logos, we'd have kind of a variety of different things rolled up into theming guides. I can go ahead and create that, and then just drag my article directly into that chapter, and now it's associated there. So now if I come back and look at this over on the left-hand side, we'll see the little drop down for the theming guide with the content color guide underneath that. Now, before this is going to be visible to anyone who's not a contributor, we do need to publish it. So up in the top right, we're able to, kind of give our final stamp of approval and make a publish of this manual. Now, I want to highlight that that does not lock future editing. So it's not like a one and done where once you publish this thing, you're locked in forever. You can, of course, come back and make some edits and publish new versions of these. But you do need to publish both the manual and each article. So we'll see that we'll publish the guide and then also publish the article here to be able to kind of complete this manual and get it visible to the entire team.
All right, so now we'll move on to town halls. Town halls was introduced about, I want to say, a year ago. And it's kind of a really unique feature. So let's say you want to have a meeting to discuss something that's coming up in the company. You can just click on town hall, create a new town hall. This is not a live virtual meeting. This is a Q&A type of thing with written questions. So here I'm going to do a marketing Q of A, and you can join the VP of Marketing, Ben Otta, Zen's younger brother, as he answers all the questions about their new national ad campaign. You can go ahead and set a start date. You can start it now. You can schedule it for later. Choose your time and date. Choose an end date. It's optional whether or not you want to do that or not. Who can attend? Everyone in the organization. Go ahead and create all the panelists. These are going to be the people that can actually answer the questions that are there. They can manage the questions. you know, add any tags you want to it. You can also determine whether or not you want to have participants answer questions. So maybe it's a small group and you don't mind if actually somebody who's just joining in and listening in answers the questions. You can do that as well. And then once you go ahead and schedule it, well, away you go. Now, even though it's scheduled, you also can do a start now. So you can just maybe if you want to start it earlier, that button will always sit here on your upcoming sessions. And you've got a choice as when you can start it really whenever you want. So you're not really locked into that really time period, but everybody's going to get a notification. It's actually going to appear on their calendar. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as to when the things happen. And once the event goes, people are actually able to ask questions, and the questions will run down the left-hand side there. And so I've got one: are we going to be doing a Super Bowl commercial? What websites are we running the ads on? And people have the ability then to see, hey, what's been answered, what hasn't been answered, what needs to be answered, has it been upvoted or downvoted. You can go ahead and add answers or make comments on it. And then this actually lives as a completed town hall. So anybody at any time can go back and reference it. So if you're familiar with, AMAs on Reddit, this is basically one of those. It's kind of an internal AMA, and they're very popular, and it's kind of nifty to do. So you don't really have to have an event where everybody's got to, get their Zoom backgrounds going and talk to each other and look at each other. This is just more of a real structured method to answer questions internally in your organization. Or again, as we talked about, if you're using this as an extranet, really powerful that way as well, communicating with your customers and doing those kind of things. And that's going to take us to events, because that's a little bit tied in. So, oftentimes we're talked about on, Zoho and their calendar, and is there a company calendar? And this is where it is. This is really the only place where, kind of a general company calendar exists, where you can put these kind of things. So as you can see on this calendar, a lot of the events are already here. So, we've got all of the different calendars here. So the Christmas party planning group calendars here, the marketing department group calendar is here as well. You can look at all events or just events for each specific group you want. So you can see there's the Christmas planning session that was here, and down here we had the marketing Q&A, and you've got a sales Q&A. So people can pretty much look at the calendar and see anything that's going on with it. You can easily, quickly go ahead and add events or video conference or a show time. So you can plan them, add them to the calendar. Really, really simple. So if you want to add an event, just set it up. It's going to appear on your company calendar. If you want to add a video conference, same thing, but video conferences are kind of like they're going to start now. So you can put it on the calendar and go ahead and start that video conference. And if you want to do the show time, maybe you're going to schedule a big training, you can access it directly from here and go ahead and completely configure the entire show time, upload your presentation, do everything, schedule it for later, and it'll add it to the company calendar for you. And again, you can put it in various groups and certain calendars, and you choose whatever calendar you want that to go into as well. Calendar also has its own settings section. So in here, you can set the date format. You want it to be 12, 24 hours. How do you want your calendar to start? You also can set up custom events. So if you saw there were the basic events we had there, if you hit create, you can actually, maybe I decided I wanted to add in a webinar event. And what that does is now when you go ahead and you create an event, if you see up here in the top, you had showtime, webinar, and now it's also an event. So you can kind of create these separate categories if you want to do things a little differently. Whatever, really, it's highly customizable. And these are more tags to let you know what's happening internally in there as well. And then Tyler's going to talk about this in a little bit. Actually, next, we're going to talk about integrations, but I briefly want to touch on the integrations that are available for Calendar, because there are a lot. So even though you've managed the calendar that way, if you want to, maybe you've got a company calendar over in Office 365, or you've got one on Google or an Outlook calendar or Zoho calendar, you actually can link those calendars directly into the calendar that lives inside Connect. So that gives you a lot more fluidity with how you want to set things up and bringing things in real time. You can have people outside the organization adding events to the calendar, and they'll appear on that internal calendar as well. So again, very powerful for an extranet as well as an intranet. And that's the calendar functionality and events inside of Connect. So let's talk about integration, shall we, Tyler?
Yeah, so we wanted to highlight kind of two of our favorites here, especially when you get into task management. as a really common question that we get asked is there any place to manage all of my tasks in Zoho kind of under one umbrella, right? Because they can be generated in so many different places, including Connect itself, that oftentimes you kind of want to have that one pane of glass where you can go to see any of those tasks. So if we jump into the integrations tab, we'll see the wide set of integrations that we can roll out. The first one we're going to do here is the Zoho CRM tasks. So this could be, any automated task that comes up. If you have a new lead and you're notifying a sales rep, that's going to show up here. Any tasks that are being created, related to deals or, weekly check-ins with certain accounts, they all are going to roll through this integration directly into Connect. Turning it on is basically as easy as checking that little box in the top right. It's very, very simple. And then all those tasks will kind of roll into the system. The second primary integration here for managing your tasks is going to be to create this integration with Zoho Projects. So similar to Zoho CRM, it's super easy to turn this on. There's one additional setting here, which basically just means that only members that are already in projects are going to see these project tasks. So if you had 10 users in Connect, but only 5 in projects, you could say only those 5 people need to see any of the boards in Connect related to project tasks. But once we go ahead and set up these integrations, we'll see basically that a couple extra sections come in here to our task settings. So we'll see these Zoho Projects tabs here. It'll show our portal name, so that's that demo to Zanata. And then it shows each of our individual projects. So we currently have 2. One is Setup Zoho CRM, and one is the kind of default Explore Zoho Projects list. So if I enter into this Explore Zoho Projects list, we'll see that it basically is going to break it down with each section being a task list from projects. All right, so it doesn't really correspond to the milestones. Instead, it focuses on the task lists themselves. So you're able to kind of see the breakdowns of what needs to be done in each of the sections, similar to how you see it in a native Connect board. And secondly, here, when we look at the Zoho CRM tasks, those are all going to flow in. And for the CRM tasks, they organize themselves based on what they are connected to. So that can be anything from an open deal. The customers would be something connected to a closed deal. You also see any tasks linked up to a lead or a contact. And last but not least, they kind of roll in tasks in the others category, which could be maybe a custom module that you have, maybe a task that's specific to an account specifically without being connected to a contact. So it kind of rolls these in their own little sections, based on what's going on over there in the CRM. So all in all, it kind of does give you that primary place to see all these different tasks without having to jump between all the different applications. And every now and then you might still want to go over to the CRM and kind of pull up one of these tasks and make sure that you know the context of what's going on with that deal, or who last talked to this contact. But you're able to kind of see that overview and make sure that you know everything that you need to get done, kind of all in one place.
All right, so that kind of brings us to the end of the webinar. We do have a Q&A though, so I don't know. It doesn't look like we have any questions yet. Have we had any that were answered, or any questions on Connect?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to toss them in there. We've got plenty of time here to run through anything that popped in anyone's head.
Yeah, while you're thinking about that, I think I want to talk a little bit more about tasks. It's really interesting how powerful the tasking engine is and the ability to bring them all in. I mean, you covered a few of them there, but you can also bring in Desk. And one of the things I love about, is you can basically filter the tasks by, different board types, right? The stages, you can move them through. I mean, that's one of the things in CRM that's kind of missing, is that you kind of want to do a Kanban board in task. Well, you probably want to move it through, is it open, completed, in progress, those kind of things, and where it's going. And you don't really have that. So, I mean, but that power to bring all the tasks from all the different things directly into here, it really does simplify things. Sorry about that, Kevin. The audio, hopefully the audio. Well, one of the things we do is we actually capture, Kevin was asking that his audio on his end was very choppy. So sometimes we see that. We actually try to, so for the recording of this, which will be on our YouTube channel, Tyler does a local audio recording and I do a local audio recording, and that's probably the one we'll end up using across the board. And then Kevin asks, do I find much confusion between Connect and Click? I think we do. I think that there's a lot of overlap between the two products. And, Tyler and I, as we actually were putting this entire presentation together, you know, everything in Connect exists elsewhere with the exception of Town Hall. So every single thing we kind of talked about in Connect, you could do elsewhere with the exception of Town Hall. Manuals is a little different as well. I mean, you could just do that in a document library, but it is kind of nice giving you that layout. But there is quite a bit of overlap. And, for the most part, I think that for an internal use, we don't see a lot of that. But I think externally, I think there's a lot of power, and we see a lot of people using this for an external purposes. All right, Tyler, anything you wanted to add?
No, nothing on my end.
All right, well, really want to thank everybody for dropping by today. I will tell you that if you want to reach us, you can send us an email over at info@zanata.com. Additionally, we can reach us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube or youtube.com/Zanata. All of this stuff lives there. And even though I don't have it up here, a little sneak peek, we're just kind of launching it this week. It'll be kind of fully fleshed out next week. But if you go to crmzen.com, that's kind of the new face of the CRM Zen show. And we're going to be covering all Zoho news over there. So it'll kind of be real time. So rather than just getting your news once a week from our newsletter or from our show, you can kind of go there on a daily basis and just see all the latest news that comes from Zoho from pretty much all sources. So we're really looking forward to getting that going. Again, thanks everybody so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.